We're back. I'm here with Jerry Hardy. He is part of the Chelmsford Cemetery Commission. You're the chairman and also a candidate for re-election.
Yes, sir.
Well, we appreciate you coming on the show. It sounds like you've been a member of or serving the town for a number of years. Can you expound a little bit about that?
Well, we're trying to figure that out, and we're getting pretty close to 57 years. I've served on the board on the cemetery board. I've been opposed once, and every 3 years they ask me, "You want to run again?" I say, "Okay." And it's interesting. You keep saying yes, and before you know it, time flies by, and here I am, 57 years later.
Well, honestly, tell us a little bit about what the cemetery board does. I mean, it seems like it's been unopposed, so you probably have been doing a pretty good job for a number of years.
Well, the board is made up of 3 members, and the chairman is usually in the last year of the 3rd term. We have a budget of $365,000 that we administer. We have a trust fund of $2.3 million. We fees that we collect for grave openings and tents and other smaller items is around $140,000 a year. So we subsidize our budget by about 40%. And then, of course, we oversee the operations of the cemetery. And it's interesting, on our board, there are 3 members, and I'm kind of the guy involved in the operations part because I'm part of that industry, and I've been part of that industry for years. And the other 2 are very good at finances, and we have to make sure that we're getting the most interest that we can get out of our $2.3 million endowment. So that's basically our function, and we meet about every month or 2 months, depending if there's anything critical coming up. We've just are in the process of expanding Pine Ridge Cemetery. That's 7 acres, and that's we have to find funds to do that, and that ought to be completed this summer. And we finished expanding Fairview and North Chelmsford 3 acres. So we've expanded the cemeteries about 10 acres. And for those folks who are number crunchers, that's about 600 grave sites per acre, depending how they're laid out. And we hire a professional to do that because we feel it's in the best interest. We'll get the most graves per acre. And even though a cemetery is hallowed ground to folks, we have an obligation to manage it efficiently and keep both things in mind, that the emotions of the cemeteries and also the financial and the planning of the cemeteries. So that's what the 3 of us do. If you want a little background, we have 3 full-time employees and a superintendent. And they take care of the cemeteries, and then we hire a young man, usually a young man, in the summertime because we have mowing of grass and all those things you have to upkeep. So that's about it. I can go into further detail, but then I'm getting into the weeds. So
that's okay. We, I'm curious how many cemeteries you oversee.
We have 6. One is Pine Ridge, is the main cemetery in the center.
Now, is that Pine Ridge? Where's River Neck? The one on
off River Neck Road.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we have Forefathers is right in the middle of town. That's the historical cemetery. And let me diverse a little bit. When we sell a lot, we charge so much money, and about 50% of the price of that lot goes into the trust fund. Well, and that's where the $2.3 million come. But cemetery like Forefathers, we don't receive much revenue. But that's the historical part of our town. This is where the town fathers. So we maintain that. Then I always felt Chelmsford was a bunch of little villages. We have a cemetery in South Chelmsford, and we maintain that. And there's a good portion of that is real old in the 1800s.
At the end of Garrison there?
Yeah, and then we have one in West Chelmsford, and then we have one in Fairview, North Chelmsford, and then we have one on Riverside, which is along Middlesex Road, along the river. And so there are 6 cemeteries that are involved. And I think our help does a phenomenal job, because if you go by Riverside and Forefathers, there's curb lots, it's up and down. It's a lot of maintenance to take care of. And these guys, sometimes I marvel how well they do. Being involved in this industry, I go in a lot of different cemeteries, and so I have a sense of, you know, what's happening and how well it's being done. So I gotta praise our folks that work in the cemetery, really.
Now, are you still working to this day, or are you retired?
I ended up at a very young age. I went through Chelmsford school system. I'm an alumnus of the Western School and Chelmsford High, and went to Northeastern, graduated. And at my age, you didn't have a choice. You went into the military. And when I got out of the military, my dad had a stroke. I ended up in the vault business. At that point, I realized I needed to learn more about the industry that I was becoming a part of. So I joined the National Concrete Burial Vault Association, became a member of the board, became president, became executive director, and that spun off to the second largest franchise system in the United States for vault companies, and became president of that dealer association, and then on the board of the parent company, and I'm still serving in that position. And like the town of Chelmsford, I'm the probably oldest elected official. I'm the oldest guy on that board too. And they keep me there, so that's good.
Wow. So you do have really good experience and background.
Well, in my position of executive director, I used to go to Washington every about 6 months and testify in front of the Veterans Affairs Committee, because they manage all the national cemeteries throughout the country. And so that was an experience too. So.
Now, is Pine Ridge the only one that has additional space at this point, or?
We're just about running out. We're filling up 7 acres, and that'll be the end of that. But Fairview has maybe another 3 or 4 undeveloped acres. And I was in there the other day, and I got to walk that, because it seems like there's a lot more room than I've been led to believe. I don't know. But we're good for a number of years, really, as far as.
Well, it could look like that, right? Because people have purchased plots but haven't necessarily passed away yet.
Yeah, yes, and then they used to purchase 4 grave lots. Now it's 2 graves, because sons and daughters move out of the community. And they're not, the family unit is being spread out all over the country. So that has a bearing on the demands that the cemetery is going to experience.
Now, do you guys ever do any sort of like decorative things during specific holidays, like flowers, things like that?
Well, we had a program that you could purchase flowers, and we would kind of place them at the appropriate times. I don't think that was extremely successful, but most times families, and we have to restrict what they put on there, because we don't want it to look, we want it to look nice, keep the aesthetic values. So basically families do most of it. But I didn't mention one thing. The cemetery has an app, and you can call the office, because I'm not technologically smart, and they will tell you the web, and you can go on your app, and you can look up your family lot, and it'll show you what cemetery and where the location is. So it saves you from going down to the office, and it's another thing that they've done.
Yeah, easy to identify.
Yeah. You get a lot of out-of-town people, and they want to see their grandparents, and they haven't been back for years. And they can do that, or they go to the office, and they'll tell them where the lot is
Now, if people put things on graves, how long do you generally let them stay there before you clear them?
Flowers, we take them off in the winter. We let them put spring, and it depends what type of flowers. This becomes sometimes, I'll tell you a story. We have to be sensitive to the needs, and we have rules and regulations. And we had one family who lost a child, and they at Christmas time put a little Christmas tree and a battery and lit up the Christmas tree. Now this is not within the rules of the cemetery, but we decided, listen, we're going to give them the season. And as long as other lot owners in the area didn't complain, we weren't going to interfere with that. And then after the season was over and the next season came, Christmas season, we said to them, listen, this is the rule, and we understand how you feel and what you're going through. And most times when you talk nice to people, they're gracious. And when you give them a good reason, they understand. So we do not allow these flowers that are being placed on top of the gravestone. I've been in cemeteries and I hate it. It looks like a mess. So we do restrict what they can do and how long they can be there.
Now, it's not like you're standing over every gravesite at every moment,
no,
so
no.
I assume you go by, and if you see things like that, unfortunately, you just clear them off?
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah, well, we try to contact the family. You got to be sensitive to the family. Because like I said, this is hallowed ground for people. And I've noticed, especially as a young man on the truck, you see the same people the same time of day every week visiting their loved ones. And you got to be sensitive to that. I mean, this is what this place is all about, actually. So you got to use common sense once in a while.
Now, you talked about having a supervisor and several people. Are those the people that dig the actual sites or dig the actual...
Our people dig the sites.
Yeah.
And
I'm just curious how that process works.
well, the funeral director calls and he says, we have Mr. Jones has passed away and he has a lot in such and such a place, and he has the numbers, and the cemetery goes out and finds the lot, and they can tell the numbers on the lot and who's buried where, and then they mark out the grave, and then they bring in a backhoe and they dig it out. And a backhoe operator in a cemetery is, I feel, very skillful because he's tucking monuments all the time. And he doesn't want to destroy anything, so I give credit to these guys too, you know. It's not like, and I'm not diminishing digging a hole in a road, but, you know, a guy working around gravestones, we don't want to be buying gravestones for everybody. You know,
right.
It's expensive.
So do you actually bury people in the middle of the winter? Or
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
you do?
Some cemeteries have what they call a heater. Now, it's like a turkey pan upside down.
Okay.
Well, it's the best way I can describe it. And then they have a propane tank and they blow hot air into it, and it takes the frost out. That's kind of slow. They get about 2 inches, an inch an hour on that. We have a jackhammers. You know, they like the town. They jackhammer the ground and they open it up. And the Bourne Cemetery, which is a national cemetery, they have a saw. They saw the swords out. And then they take the loom off and they take it and put it in a big pile and they reuse it in the spring. So, you know, it's different ways of doing it.
Wow. Well, it sounds like a pretty good operation. My father, who started this show, passed away about a year ago.
I'm very much aware of that.
He's buried in Pine Ridge.
Sure.
As is my grandfather. Mm-hmm. My house faces Pine Ridge. So
does it? Yeah.
So I can see the hill.
Okay. Okay.
Better for worse. Quiet neighbors.
Yeah.
But yeah, what a well-run cemetery. I've been through there, and you know that's the one thing I'll say about Chelmsford is, you know, I've never ever had the thought of we have poorly run cemeteries. So.
Well, thank you. I I got to give credit to everybody involved. But on the other hand, if they weren't doing their job, they'd hear from a couple of us, that was for sure.
Yeah.
We've never really had any issues.
Well, we will have you look at the camera and we'll have you ask the voters for the vote.
Well, I don't know whether this is the, let's see, 30th or 40th time I've asked for this vote, and I'm unopposed. But please vote for me in the election because it influences how the other commissions feel about me when I get there to the next meeting.
Well, I will tell you, I'm so grateful that you came on tonight because we really have not had a discussion about the cemeteries in a long, long time, and it's such an important part of our town, and you've been so insightful. So,
Well, I think people should have a better knowledge of what they're paying for. And
Yeah.
they do subsidize it for about $200,000 a year, so.
well,
if
I'm always
I
there
can-
at town meetings shifting the cash, so.
Well, yeah, well, what happens is when they sell a lot, that 50% goes into the perpetual care, then the other goes into the development, and that's what you're shifting around. That's all it can be used for.
Right.
And that money is used to new sections, roads that we did, doing and repair, so, you know. But the state doesn't let Jerry Hardy take anything, you know. Make sure he's a good boy.
No Jerry Hardy vacation funds.
We used to get $100 a year, but Paul Cohen took that away from us.
Well, we're sorry about that, but we do appreciate that you continue to serve, and thank you for running again.
Well, thank you for having me on, and I hope I've helped some people gain a better understanding of what we do there and why we do it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.